I see you.
I see you.
That pretty face. Oh, that's kind of appropriate, isn't it? Uh, Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Wreak Havoc Film Buffs podcast. I am your host. Host with the most, with a ghost. No, that's later. Sammie Castle. Hi guys. Uh, with my extra special, wonderful co-host, Chad. You want to start? Introduce yourself.
I am Chad Hunt of Incredible Hulk fame. I don't know what to say there, but anyway. But I'm Chad Hunt.
I have a story in a minute for you.
Does it only take a minute to tell it? If not, I'll go take a nap.
It's a short story, I promise.
Okay.
You gonna introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, I'm Sis. I'm just here.
Hi, I'm Sis. I don't know. I ain't paying attention. My screen has your name on it, but I don't know if the one that we put out does.
Oh. Mine says you.
That's what mine says.
Because that's you.
Is that why? Because that's me? It just says you on mine. I don't get it.
Y'all, technology is killing y'all. Oh, Lord have mercy. So my story real quick. I went by the store, Parts Unknown, yesterday to pick up my comic books. Hadn't been in a little while, so I had a pretty good stack. John, of course, was there. We started chit-chatting, talked for like an hour and a half.
On wrestling?
A little bit of everything. We talked a lot of comics. But this guy that used to own a store in Winston-Salem walks in. And I hadn't seen Tim in Lord knows how long. And he's worse than us. He's worse than John. You can't shut him up. And John's trying to tell a story and he'd just interrupt in the middle of it. And then it's like squirrel. He's talking about something else. And he'd see a book on the back wall and go into that and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, I know Tim. I knew he was like that. And I try not to hang around him too much. John is just looking at me like, who the hell is this guy? So he's there maybe 30 minutes and then leaves in a whirlwind just like he showed up. And John's like, who the hell was that guy? So I told him and he was like, I don't know him from Adam. I said, I am glad I was here but I would also be curious of how you reacted with just you and him in the room. And he was like, I told his ass to leave. So anyway, I was getting ready to leave and we were talking about artists. I asked him if there was any new artist, comic book artist that he liked. Because, he's a big Wally Wood out, he loves Alex Toth.
Mm-hmm.
Will Eisner, Al Williamson, he knew all those guys. They always came to the convention. So I asked if there's anybody new he liked. And he mentioned a guy, and I know he wrote a book called The Fix, or he drew a book called The Fix. And I can't remember what his name is now. So he pointed him out, he pointed somebody else out. And then somehow the story got to, or the conversation got to Inkers. So I just walked over and pulled X-Men 10 something, or no, maybe it wasn't that high. I pulled an X-Men book that you had inked out of the bins. And I walked over and I said, I opened it up and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, I want you to look this before anything else and tell me what you think about it. And he was like, man, that's some art. And I was like, you don't like the art? And he went, that's a lot. That's that 90s blown up kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I said, well, what do you think about the inking? And he went, oh. So he started flipping through it and he was like, I mean, he did a really good job considering what he had to work with. And then there was a full page Storm.
Yeah. And Cyclops?
No, it was just Storm, but it was a whole page. And he was like that. He did what he could do with that. So he did really well, whoever it is. And he said, and the biggest thing I can say is he didn't give up on the backgrounds. He said, some inkers will get to the background and just kind of give up and not do anything. He said he didn't give up on the backgrounds. He finished the entire page. So you got high marks from John.
Oh, okay.
Well, that means anything or not. It just, we had never talked about it. So
well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Did you tell him it was me? Well, I've only been in his store one time, but
yeah, I couldn't remember whether I had taken you or not. So I was like, that's my buddy Chad, and da 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 da. And he was like, well, he started asking, well, why you weren't doing it anymore, working. And I was like, honestly, don't know. I said, from what I understand, it's a lot of hard work for not a lot of money. And then you're
nowadays it is. It's very. That's why you don't see any good comic book really artists that really stand out anymore, because everybody draws like almost the equivalent of stick figures, with the exception of very few. There's no more guys like Jim Starlin or Jack Kirby or anybody that really stands out as a comic book artist anymore. It all looks like comics made online or something, like on very simplistic, not well laid out and uninteresting. You want the comic to look interesting, and a lot of them are just static shots of whatever character they're working on, and it's not very interesting to look at anymore.
Yeah.
Like I said, with the exception of a few still.
Yeah. That's kind of I think what got us started on the conversation was I'm reading and this will segue into what are we into right now. I'm reading a book called there was a series of books in the late 90s called The Big Book of something. Like the first one I read was The Big Book of Unexplained. And the one I'm reading right now is called The Big Book of Westerns, or Weird Westerns. The Big Book of Weird Westerns. And the artwork in it's amazing. And I hadn't heard a lot of those guys. But Sergio Argona does a story. And Russ Heath does a story. So, I mean, the artwork is incredible in them. And John started laughing. He says, it's funny you mentioned that Russ Heath piece. I actually owned that entire story. He has the original copies of that entire story that Russ.
Oh, wow.
For that book.
Russ Heath was an awesome artist.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody ever gets a chance to go back and see some of the that old EC Comic stuff with Johnny Craig and Bernie Wrightson, who is my favorite, present company excluded, is my favorite artist of all time.
You're just saying that because it's true.
I actually got to looking at the back of the book, and I guess once I get done with this one, I'm going to have to start looking for some more. John says The Big Book of Freaks is really good, that he's read some of those books, but there's a whole series of them, and I am enjoying the heck out of them because this one's, weird Western stuff, so it talks about Jesse James, and it talks about the real Judge Roy Bean and Wyatt Earp, and the first story is a Doc Holliday story, and just kind of telling his story. Everybody, or most everybody's seen Tombstone, so they kind of know a little bit about Doc Holliday's story, but this kind of expands on that. So,
well, the time I was working on comics too, that it was almost mandated by Marvel that everything looked like Image Comics, with that everything's cross-hatched and lines everywhere for no reason, that kind of thing. I hated working on those. I hated working in that style. My style, is more organic and natural. shadows and light type stuff. I hated all that cross hatching, but it was a paycheck.
So he asked what you were. I said he does a lot of commission work now. He says that's a lot of artists do a lot of commission work now. So
yeah.
Sis, anything you into right now? Anything new you want to talk about, or?
I've just been reading like 4 different books right now. So
tell about the scary book.
which one?
The priest one, or in our priest one, or the dark?
Oh yeah, Night Church.
Yes.
Which you have to go back and sometimes reread that to follow. But it starts out like white noise, and it brainwashes the parents to give this priest these kids, and then they take them to the church. And then there's one that I'm at the part now where he's whispering to this young woman about she should have a baby by him and all. It's just weird. It's a weird book.
Sounds like real priest stuff.
Maybe.
Based on a true story.
Yeah, so I'm reading that, and then I'm reading Carolina Hates, and I'm reading Tom Perry's book, the murders, local murders.
Murder in the Rear View.
Yes, Murder in the Rear View. And then I've got, of course, my trash novel going too. Just rotating.
How do you keep track of that?
I just do. Get bored of one, I'll go pick up the other one.
I start a book, I have to finish it. I can't.
Generally I do, but the one has kind of thrown me off a little bit, so I need some lighter reading.
Understand. You normally don't read darker stuff, so
yeah.
Kat, anything you into new right now?
Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I'm watching Mandalorian. I finished up Last of Us. What an awesome series that is, or that was. I was looking so forward to it, and I'm looking forward to Evil Dead Rise this Friday.
Oh, is that coming up this Friday?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So
Dan and I have had this conversation 100 times. I like the first original Evil Dead. He's a big Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness fan.
Mm-hmm.
I like those. I just don't put them in the upper echelon like most people do. I was not a fan of the remake when I went and saw it in the theater, where everybody else loved it. But we went to see that together, didn't we?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I think so. But anyway,
it's been about 10 years now since it's been out.
God, has it been that long?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God.
20.
I remember one of the kids. I think Morgan went, but I think you and I went together. But anyway,
2013.
I'm not over the top, big time with that, but I mean, it was good. It was okay. So I'm curious to see where they go with this one.
Well, it doesn't look as comedic as as Army of Darkness, and but this is more scares, I think, like the remake was, and that wasn't really a remake as much as it was a retelling of like another episode of it, but it was just more serious, and I think that's how this one's going to be too. But it looks really good, and I'm really excited to see it.
I'm a huge fan of the original, the first one.
Yeah, the first one was, when I first saw that scared the living crap out of me.
It was legit scary. The camera work that they did on that, now that I'm in movies and kind of get some of that stuff, that them dragging that camera through the woods
on a 2x4.
Yeah. And then
before there was Steadicam, they couldn't afford a Steadicam to do it, so they tied the camera to the end of a 2x4 and just ran through the woods with it.
I think Zach would let us do that with one of his cameras now.
No.
We could take one and he'd never know.
Yeah, I bet he would.
Yes, he would. I don't know. He's lost his boom pole, so I don't know. Well, just the last I heard, he couldn't find it.
He probably has it in that Jeep somewhere amongst all that equipment.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway,
Probably
cool.
behind the seat.
How have you liked Mandalorian, real quick, this season?
Say again?
How have you liked the Mandalorian this season?
It's turning into the Bo-Katan show.
Yeah.
A little bit, but it's still okay to me. I like the storyline. Not as much as I have previous ones. The first couple of seasons, it started out as a space western almost, and that's what I really, really liked about it. And it's sort of pushed away from that a little bit, so I'm not as thrilled about it as I used to be.
I loved the first season. Didn't like the second season as much.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate, and one of my big issues with Mandalorian was them just taking their helmets off anytime they want to, and that's not how that works. So I'm kind of glad they've addressed that, and that's kind of been part of what the season's been about. Whether it's Bo-Katan getting her status or whatever it is on the Mandalorian's back, or him explaining why he took his off, so that I have kind of enjoyed. But yeah, I've actually liked this season better than I did the second season so far. I don't like it that the second season they focused on Grogu so much, and I just don't find that interesting of a character.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, he's a little too cutesy pie.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't mind him being cute, but until this season, he hasn't really done anything.
Yeah,
he's just been a prop.
Yeah, well, supposedly he trained with Luke Skywalker a little bit, so he's learned a little bit of something.
Yeah,
to control it a little bit. So maybe
I haven't watched the last episode, so the one from last week. So okay, anyway, nerds. All right, so tonight we are going to talk about the 2019. Was it released just on Netflix, or was it done in theater? Do you know?
Which one? I See You.
I See You. Yep.
That's went right to Netflix, I think.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really? Because it said it was a box office hit, so I didn't know.
I never heard of it until
maybe in a different country or something. Or...
Maybe, I don't know. I just know it said it brought in $1.1 million in box office.
Well, that's not a hit.
That's a hit. That's a lot of money.
I never heard of it, so I thought it went straight to Netflix.
No, I didn't know either. I didn't hear about it until Chad suggested it.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it. Let's start with that. Chad, since you suggested this one, what were your initial thoughts? What drew you to watching it? Because I mean, it's 4 years old now. What brought you to this?
A couple of folks at work were mentioning it and said they saw it and that it was really good. And Chad likes scary movies. Chad, watch this. Okay, and so I looked at it just a few days after it popped up on Netflix, and I thought it was maybe a slasher or a stalker movie or something like that, but it turned out to be a whole lot more than that. This I haven't seen a movie in a long time where you watch scary movies for so long, you start to see all the tropes and things, and you're able to figure it out, what's going on by the end of it. This movie had me guessing until up to the very freaking end. I mean, it was, and it didn't do it in a cheap way either. It made everything that happened during the movie paid off at the end. They didn't really cheat on anything, as far as I know, about the things that were going on that you go, what the hell is that? It made you think it was a horror movie. It made you think it was a slasher movie. It made you think a haunted house movie.
Mhm.
It made you think a lot of stuff, and it was none of that shit. It was. Are we spoiling this, by the way?
I mean, we spoiled all the rest of them. So
Okay.
yeah.
I mean,
you can do it
I
now
did
or we
not-
can do it later.
I did not see it coming. Just when I
Mhm.
thought I had it figured out, it turned again. And so I was really impressed by it. And it's hard to explain what kind of movie it is when somebody asks you, because it's not a horror movie. It's not your typical thriller movie. It's its own animal, I guess. And I just enjoyed the hell out of it. It's one of the best movies I've seen this year, I think.
Nice. Sis? Do you have
Yeah, I
any
was
thoughts?
I was hooked from the get go. I was just glad I didn't watch it at like 2:00 in the morning, or else I'd been looking under my bed and everything else. But yeah, I liked the movie. I really enjoyed it. And like you said, it kept you guessing right until the end, and it was like you thought like you said, you thought you had it figured out, and then it's like, bam, hey, where'd that come from? And, you know. But yeah, I definitely would not, if I was at home by myself, I would not watch this like at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. This needs to be a daylight one.
Such
You
an
check all your windows.
such an interesting concept. And I don't know why this flew under the radar so much, because it mixes, it had elements of Memento in it. It had elements of People Under the Stairs in it. It had elements of Strangers in it, The Strangers. It had, it was just, it was like 3 different movies.
Yeah. It reminded me a lot of that movie Identity with John Cusack from a few years back.
Yeah. That's I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that's a really good movie with a lot of twists and turns in it. But this one, you kept waiting. It was funny because when Chad suggested it, I was like, "Oh wait, we can't do 2 ghost haunted house movies back to back. I don't want to do that." And then I watched it and I went, "Well, that's because we didn't do that." It's not. This is something genre bending, and I'm surprised it hasn't got more acclaim than it did. Because I mean, I thought it was tremendously well made, tremendously done,
well written. I
Yes.
mean,
well written.
Yes.
And again, you didn't know what the hell was coming from where and what was going on, and so let's talk a little bit about the I think my first big surprise was, oh shit, is that Helen Hunt? What is this movie that Helen Hunt is? And is that Helen Hunt? And what the hell happened to her?
She got old like everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, but she, I guess in my head, I still had Twister Helen Hunt. And she has aged. And I don't know. She always come across as this bubbly, kind of snarky character. Like she was a lot younger than she is. And now suddenly she's not a lot younger than she is. So that was kind of my first big surprise. Was like, and I actually had to go look. I was like, damn, is that Helen Hunt? So the let's talk a little bit about the crew in this, because I mean she's obviously the star. but then we get shit. John Tierney. Shit, that's not right. Tanay. John Tanay, who plays the policeman, her husband.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it's Michael Bean. That's B. Shit, that's not right. Sammie, get it straight. That's Behan from Tombstone. The guy with the little mustache
Yeah.
and the derby. Why y'all looking at me like I don't know what I'm talking about? The
I
sheriff.
thought that was Powers Booth.
No. That's the leader of the Cowboys. Behan
Oh.
is the sheriff in town that pairs up with the Cowboys. You know, he's always protecting them.
Was that him?
Yes, that's the same guy.
Oh wow.
He also played in Free Willies too.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
That'll learn him.
That'll learn him. I tried to call him Michael Bean, who was also in Tombstone. But anyway.
Yeah, you had us all confused there.
Yeah, I was like, I don't
Did you know that was Abraham Lincoln?
So let's talk. What'd you think of this? What'd you think about the acting performances? I mean,
I
we
thought
got
they were
Oscar
really,
winner.
I thought they were really, really good. The one character, just I cannot remember who he reminds me of, but he's kind of creepy. The younger kid that goes around sneaking around in the house, he's kind of a creepy kid.
Mhm.
What is his name? What is his name?
Owen Teague.
Owen Teague. Yeah. He kind of creeps me out a little bit.
He's in both. He's in both the new It movies and the Empty Man. He's done a lot of horror stuff, and you can see.
Yeah,
why.
and he was in Mrs. Fletcher. I found out, but yeah.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, he freaks me out just a little bit because when he first came into the scene, I thought he was it. That's the one that was causing all the issues and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I mean, everybody was.
I mean, yeah, you thought he was slowly like going insane.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
And it turns out he had a big reason to be doing what he was doing and why he joined the girl into this. What they call it? Frogging with a PH.
Frogging, yes, yeah.
Frogging with a PH.
Where they go and you sneak into somebody's house and live in their house without them knowing. These two were doing that, and she brought him along this time because I think she said he requested to come with her.
Yeah, she uses him as a cameraman.
Yeah, so he knew what he was doing from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And we'll probably have to explain the plot at some point here, but
I didn't think about that. Okay, so I mean, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and get into some spoiler stuff and talk about the plot a little bit because, again, I think this is like 3 different movies. You got the first third of the movie is what's happening to this family. You know, Helen Hunt is cheated on the husband. The husband and the son are both pissed off at her.
Mm-hmm.
The husband is a cop who's investigating. Oh, well, hang on. Backtrack a little bit. Let's start at the beginning because that is one of the coolest and weirdest beginnings I've ever seen in a movie where this kid is just riding a bicycle and just something jerks him off the bike. And you don't know what the hell it is. And I think it's kind of what led into, this is going to be a ghost movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then they don't ever explain it until much later on.
Yeah.
So, okay. So back to the movie. So the first third is this family coping with her cheating and, then the husband dealing with these kids. He's investigating these 2 kids that have gone missing. Then suddenly, these 2 new people show up, and you're like, "What the hell?" How did you feel about that, Chad? Were you just confused, or?
I wasn't confused, because by that time I was sort of invested in the story, and I knew it was going to be okay, now we have these two people. They're going to have something to do with what's going on, because a lot of weird stuff was going on. I forget what she asked the boy, did you do such and such? Somebody was turning record players on.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of weird stuff like that. Somebody was pulling the covers off somebody when they're asleep to make you think this is like a ghost story.
Yeah.
And the mother's asking the son, "What did you do such and such?" I can't remember what he did now, but he's like, no. But these two people are living in their house, unbeknownst to them, in the attic. So they
their bedroom.
Yeah, so they're introduced. So these things start happening, and then you realize it's them. It's not a ghost. So yeah, I was like, okay, let's see where this is going now. That's the feeling I got when I first saw them introduced, because they just come out of nowhere. It's like they're waiting across the street for the car to leave in the morning, and then they make their way across. So everything is time jumping in the movie too. You're seeing a lot of time jumping.
But I mean, it's kind of one time jump. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. Sis, what did you think about that first swerve that we got?
Well, it was creepy. Like her cup disappearing, and then you later find it sitting on the roof, or the dad later finds it sitting on the roof, or her husband, and he thinks it's his son out there smoking pot and putting it in the cup to get even with his mama. And it's like, it's got so many twists and turns. It is just like one of them. And y'all know I'm not big on scary movies, but this is one of like the coolest ones I've seen. But yeah,
and it's kind of like the Sixth Sense there. It's give us clues all the way through, and we don't realize it.
Yeah, because because like her silverware disappears, and she's blaming it on a repair guy, and it really wasn't them. And then later, the boy finds the silverware in a pillowcase in the dryer. It was like all sorts of weird crap was happening.
She comes home, and the repair guy's in the house already, and she's like, "How did you get in?" He goes, "Well, your daughter let me in." And she's like, "What?" So you're kind of.
I think that was the first big kind of like, what the hell's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And that also led me to a ghost story. That comment, it's like, wait, we haven't seen a girl at all.
Yeah.
And a girl has let the repairman into the house. And then all of a sudden we see a girl. It's like, wait, what the hell's going on? So the second third of the movie is explaining these two people that are just living in someone else's house without anybody knowing it, and how the dude is just messing with the family, which is kind of funny. But she explains the whole. Is frogging a real thing?
I think so. Yeah, I've heard of it before this movie. Yeah.
Huh.
Good God, if it happens, I'm sorry. Somebody's gonna get hurt.
Well, they're going to pay half the rent. That's what I say.
I mean, we live in a pretty big house. That kind of scares the shit out of me. I don't know that other than the toy room, I don't know that we don't have. It'd be tough to get in and out of the attic like that. They had attic access out of a room, but
yeah.
It's weird.
And we should say, while all this is going on, there's a serial killer at loose who's copycatting a killer from, like, what was it, 10 or 15 years earlier?
Yeah. Oh,
right.
So maybe, well, yeah, maybe, but so while all this is going on at home, the dad cop and his partner are investigating these copycat murders.
Mm-hmm. So we learn about frogging, and we see Owen Teague's character doing what looks like devolving into madness.
Yeah. Each prank he starts pulling the family gets more and more insane and more.
Yeah.
till you start wondering what it's. You realize he's got something in for these people for some reason.
Yeah. The girl even starts questioning, his
Mhm.
tactics. And she's trying to convince him to begin with that, you're going to get caught if you do. You're going to get us caught if you do all this other stuff.
And he's like, "You're not going to ruin this for me." So
Right.
I was like, "Okay, what now? What is your deal now?"
And it was weird because she's trying, like, she knows what she's doing is wrong, but it's fun and challenging for her. But she's also trying to protect this family from this kid.
Yeah.
So she's like going to catch me. So she's like, no, you're not going to do this. You're not messing with them. This is not what this is about. This is just the challenge of going undetected.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's just messing with that, and she's freaking out, and he's scaring her, and she's still trying to protect the family and still trying to do her thing, and it's really just messed up a little bit.
It's a mind bend.
Like,
it explains everything.
Like for earlier, the father wakes up and the bed's wet, and he's like, "Oh man, like I must have wet myself during the night or something." And later you find out the boy's standing on the bed frame and he's pissing on the guy while he's asleep.
Yeah.
So it does stuff like that where you see the results of one thing before you see what caused it.
Yeah.
And but it all pieces together as the movie goes.
Yeah.
It's like filming backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is like Memento. Memento is the story is told backwards. But then 2/3 of the way through the movie, they're like, nah, that's not what's happening at all. Then we get back to the serial killer stuff, and everything gets thrown on top of we get thrown on top of our head. We get dropped on our head.
Mm-hmm.
Because we find out that the dad is the guy. Which is weird, but what the worst part of it is that the kid that's living in his house is one of the kids that he kidnapped, I guess, or
kidnapped and murdered.
Yeah.
But they got away.
Yeah, that was the intention. Was he was going to murder him.
Yeah, the girl was running through the woods, and she comes upon this trailer in the woods, and this little trailer had 2 boys bound up in there, tied up. And did the father show up at that time?
He did.
Yeah, he did, and killed her, right?
No, he didn't kill her. He knocked her out, suffocated her to the point that she blacked out, and then he took her back to the house.
Oh, gotcha.
But
I was all into this movie, y'all.
Yeah,
she ended up in the truck because so what happened to the son? And
Alec. Okay, so Alec, who is the Tegan boy's character, it messes with the kid while he's playing a video game, asking him if he knows what frogging is, and So anyway, he eventually ties the young boy Connor up, and she's trying to stop him. Mindy, the character, she's trying to stop him from doing this, and he pushes her, and she hits her head and knocks herself out.
That's right. It's yeah.
So then he takes care of the boy, and then he puts her in a car.
Alec, dad's car.
Yeah, puts her in the trunk of the dad's car because I guess he was initially going to take her and get help because he was really I think that was the first time he ever showed concern in the whole entire movie was when he hurt her.
Yeah.
But then he throws the Connor boy into the bathtub, tries to go take her, but couldn't get the keys or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the father shows up and drives.
Right. So then he climbs out of the car and hides, and the father doesn't know the girl's in there. So he takes her to the woods, and then that proceeds to her waking up, sneaking out of the car, using the mother's boyfriend or boyfriend's.
We forgot all about him.
Yeah, so he
wasn't around very long.
Yeah, he gets knocked out. Then the young girl witnesses the murder of him, and it's just like it just goes all over the place. It was just a really
People are listening to this going, huh?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
that's the thing,
We're not doing it any justice whatsoever.
no, you have
But
to
it's
watch it.
Such
You
a
do.
mind screw.
Yes, yes.
It's not even funny.
And it's one of those that you do not take your attention away, because if you take your attention away from it, you're gonna miss details.
You will miss something.
And I mean, it's so smartly written.
Mhm.
You think you got it figured out, and then you don't have it figured out.
Right.
And then you think you have it figured out again, and then you don't have it figured out. And
Mhm.
then once you really figure it out, then they start adding on stuff after that to like, oh, well, this is the reason this happened, and this is the reason that happened. And you're like, holy shit, this is just it's expertly written.
It made me curious of how they wrote this. Did they start backwards and write it backwards, and then turn around and film it the other way? I mean, I'm curious as to how the process of how they came up with this and filmed it.
And this
That would be a pretty cool thing to be finding out.
Yeah.
And it was written by Devin Gray, who is actually an actor. I think this is one of the first things he's written that's gotten made.
Mm.
So for early time out, this is really done really well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think my only beef is there's so much story going on. I don't know if we get enough character development.
You really didn't need it though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These characters are sort of like archetypes.
Yeah.
You don't really need a lot of. You don't really need to know this girl's home life or what she does for a hobby, and you don't really need to know her feelings on ponies. That's just they're playing the role they're there to play in that little bit of time, and the story is so written so well. It's very effective.
Yeah.
Right. And they represented well. I mean, they did their character, and you knew Connor was an angry teenager.
Mhm.
You knew that mom messed up because, Helen Hunt trying to fix it, trying to make it all better. And she's a counselor too. So she's like using her medical degree, and I can do this. And she's really placid through it. And, so it's like they played well.
Yeah.
And while the dialogue is not deep, there is a lot of really good lines in it.
Mhm.
The husband and his partner talking, and the partner's like, they have counselors for that, and he's like, she is a counselor. Just little stuff. Or when the kid and the dad are facing off, and the dad's like, he figures out, and he's like, oh, no, please don't kill me. You don't understand my father. And he just shoots him and says, I don't give a fuck.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like everybody, that's all we hear now is I was treated like this when I was a kid, and I was treated like that. And that's the reason I'm a bad person. And that kid's like, look, you tried to kill me. I don't give a shit. I
Mhm.
don't give a shit why you did it. You tried it.
Yeah.
So just expertly done.
Yeah.
It also had a lot of, using a wrestling term, face heel turns, I guess.
Mhm.
The dad is the good guy because he's been cheated on, and he's also a cop.
Mhm.
And then in the middle, he's still a good guy, but then at the end, he's a bad guy. And then the kid is the bad guy in the middle, and then he's the good guy at the end. And it's so much stuff going on.
Mhm.
It is, and it is a busy movie, but it's a good busy. It keeps you guessing,
Yeah.
and it just it makes you think, and you're like,
Mhm.
Makes you think is the exact right thing.
Makes you think, what the hell is going on here?
right? Because at first, I mean, you're thinking, well, you got an angry teen here and all this stuff is happening. So you're thinking he's the one messing with his parents. And,
Yeah.
and especially when he threatens his mom, you deserve to pay. You're the one that screwed up our family and blah, blah, blah. You know?
Yeah. And there were some creepy, scary moments in it, like when she's in the son's room picking up stuff.
Yes, and the frog mask.
Yeah, and the kid wears a frog mask. One of the frogging kids wears a frog mask. She looks under the bed, and there's that mask. The kid's laying right there with that mask on it. She just thinks it's one of his toys or games or something like that, and she just looks at it and just goes and walks on, you know. But he was right there under the bed.
Yeah, it was that whole idea is creepy, that someone else can live in your house and you not know it. And again, I don't know why this hasn't got more accolades and why it hasn't gotten more props, but I mean, they took a little piece here, a little piece there, a little piece here, a little piece here, and put it in this well-crafted story, well acted.
Well, there's no way you can market. I don't think there's no way you can market this movie any one certain way without making people think it's a slasher movie or a horror movie. Or how do you market it? You know, what do you market it as?
We're almost swerving ourselves now, you know,
Yeah.
because I mean, I looked at it and I was like, oh, we're getting ready to watch a horror movie.
Yeah.
And that's kind of not what it turned out to be.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I mean, they had stuff like the TV turning on and off, which was downstairs. He had the remote, so they would turn the TV on, and what was the other thing?
The record player.
Yeah, the record player would come on at certain times, and it was just that kid walking around the house, turning things on, stealing silverware, and doing all that kind of stuff. It turns out at the end. So.
And like I said, you can't. I mean, this has so many aspects of it that you cannot fit it into one tiny little box. You can't do that.
That might have been what hurt it as far as the theater release.
Yeah, it's hard to market. Yeah, and that's you know, some of the stuff we make. Like when we made Countdown to Midnight, I mean, I stand behind that movie. But when we made it, when I read it the first time, I said, Dan, I can't market this. It's not a horror movie. It's not a sci-fi movie. It's not really a drama. It's kind of in its own genre, and I can't.
That's a Dan Sellers movie. You can't figure it out.
I mean, it told a story, but when no film festivals are going to take it because it just didn't fit into any genre. So,
and see, that's the sad thing, because you have all these great movies that you guys are making, and that, you know, like this particular movie, I See You. You know, you're trying to box them in, but they really don't fit into anything. But they're so good that why are we trying to label these things?
This is definitely a word of mouth movie.
Yes, and it's a really good one.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it to the table.
I liked it. I enjoyed this one.
Oh, I knew Sammie would like it. I knew Sissy would watch it and say, that Chad, what has he got us watching now? But I knew you'd like it in the end.
Yeah, I was just thanking God I didn't watch it at like 2:00 in the morning when I was up, because oh my God, I would have flipped the lid.
My only beef is, and this is from a filmmaking side, is the cinematography wasn't that great. They tried to be, but there was way too many of those panning drone shots.
Yeah.
For the opening bike sequence, that kind of worked. And then when they drop down and do the shot of the kid getting pulled off the bike, which we'd later find out is actually a string, run across the bike trail. But it doesn't look like that at all until they explain that, and you're like, oh, well, that kind of does make sense. But other than that, there's just way too many drone shots of the house, and
yeah.
That's my only real complaint with it. I mean, it still looks good, but it looks like a typical.
Well, it looks like it had a lower budget, and so maybe they had the drone. Only had the drone for a day or two, so they said, let's get all these overhead
It had
shots.
a $5 million budget.
Yeah,
that was it. They probably paid Helen Hunt and John Tenney that most
half of that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And Owen Teague's a pretty big name. He wasn't at the time, but since then he's kind of risen up a little bit. But
yeah, a great movie, man. It's just one of my favorites of the year so far.
So that's I was going to ask for final thoughts, Chad. Is that your final thought?
Yeah, I mean, if you like all those kind of movies, thrillers, mysteries that try and put pieces together in movies to figure it out, this is one of those movies. It's just expertly written, and the story is told. I'm always looking for how the story's told. I could care less about cinematography. Sorry, Jeff Moore, who the director's nephew was in another life. I could care about less than that, but I'm always looking at how the story's being told, and this was just an expertly done story that just you unfolded, and it's like opening one of those Russian dolls where the smaller ones in there, and it keeps you keep your stackable dolls. It's just like that. It's like peeling off layers of it. It's just amazingly done.
That's a good analogy. I like that. Sis, final thoughts?
I think we're just going to leave it where Chad said, because I don't think you could say it better.
Yeah, again, I'm glad you brought this one to our attention. I'm glad whoever told you about it, because it's.
I probably would have never watched it if somebody hadn't have told me about it. So
yeah, we've a lot of movie podcasts, and we've been guilty of this in the past too. Covered just big name stuff. Stuff that's we really enjoy, or stuff that's really popular, or maybe challenging each other to Dan will give me something that I've not seen that he really liked, or something like that. Like, God help me, Swiss Army Man. Stuff like that. But we didn't get into smaller movies like this, and I'm glad we did. That was an enjoyable movie, especially for this day and age. I struggle to like, we're so used to Marvel movies now, and we expect everything to be big, and there's some really good stuff on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon like this that you just have to search out.
Yeah.
And word of mouth and that kind of stuff. I wonder what Lily would have thought about this one if she if she'd got through the first third of it. I think the first third would have bored her, but after that, I think she'd been like, "Oh, okay," because it makes you think, it makes you use your head, which I love in a theater.
And see, I'm one. You guys are more the critics of it, and I look at it from a I don't know a consumer, I guess, point of view, where I'm not, even though I'm around y'all and I see y'all making these movies and stuff, but if I'm not entertained, I ain't watching. I'm just and I'm not a big TV person anyway. So when you guys suggest something, I have to actually go and watch it.
I'm a completist, so I can't remember too many movies I started and didn't finish, even if it sucked. So to have a movie that really makes you think and makes you interested, I mean, that's a good.
And from the get-go too, it doesn't wait to catch you; it catches you from the start.
It's about a 90-minute movie, and every bit of that movie there's not a minute wasted. There's no fat on this movie.
And that's the other thing. It's only an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We're so used to 3-hour movies.
Mm-hmm.
A movie that's an hour and a half is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
So cool.
And I've always been when I watch a movie, I don't care what it is, whether it's for this or the horror movie podcasts I do over there for Gruesome. I'm always looking for how the movie touches me emotionally, and if it grabs me. I'm not necessarily looking for the super cool special effects or anything like that. It's the story. If it's a good story and it's told well, it doesn't have to be a $200 million movie to do that. And we've all seen that at the film fest. There's Wreak Havoc Film Fest. There's always standouts. 10, 15-minute long films that they'll just blow you away. And that's what I like about it. This was one of those type of movies.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it for a while now that some of the best horror is in shorts. We get to see some of the best stuff that never sees a theater or anything. Luckily they had that shorts TV stuff for a while, and some of our friends got into that kind of stuff. But it's very, even then, outside of us, I don't know that anybody knew about that show. So I'll trumpet movies like this all day long. So cool. Well, let's wrap up this discussion then. We've given our final thoughts. Any final words on anything, Chad?
The end.
This?
You need to check this movie out.
Yeah.
ICU movie on Netflix. You need to check it out.
I agree. It's on Netflix. Yeah, I guess it got released in theaters for a short amount of time. I wonder if it was right at the end of 2019 and the pandemic got it, or
I think so. Yeah, I think I read something about that. Yeah,
I don't know what happened. So.
But it's in the top 10 on Netflix right now. So.
Oh, is it really?
And well deserved. Well deserved.
That's good. Maybe we've helped with that a little bit. All right, Chad, give your all your places.
My gosh. Okay, everybody, here we go. Check me out on gruesomemagazine.com. I'm on 3 podcasts over there, sometimes 4. 3 dealing with horror movies by the decade, 60 or classic era, which covers everything from cave drawings to up to 1969, 70s films, horror films, and the 80s horror films. So I'm over there doing that. Sometimes I'll be on Heroes and Droids podcast that covers superheroes and Star Wars and that kind of crap. I'm on Instagram, Chatty, CHADDY_baby on Instagram. Check me out on Facebook, Chad Hunt. And I'm on TikTok. I got a new account because I keep getting banned for telling too many fart jokes or something. I don't know. But
what do you do to get banned from TikTok?
I don't know. I'll say some vile shit just to be funny. But so I don't know why I got banned, but it's all good. I don't do it for that anyway. Let's see. What else? That's it.
Forgot your Twitter.
Oh, my Twitter. I have a Twitter account, but I don't ever use it because Twitter is trash.
Twitter is trash.
Twitter is trash. It's a shithole.
Sis, you got anything you want to share?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I don't push her. I don't blame her.
She makes good cowboy stew.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
When you do that?
I cook all the time sometimes.
But
All the time,
is not
sometimes.
When people will eat, I will cook.
If people will eat, and Lily won't eat anything that's not
Mhm.
McDonald's and Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chick-fil-A. I will be remiss, and Dan will yell at me if I don't mention our Patreon at Wreak Havoc Productions. You can find all of our stuff at www.wreakhavocproductions.com. Dan is exploring Vegas right now, which is interesting.
He's also doing, like, people who support us on Patreon. If you give $5 or more, you get an 8x10 of Dan naked on a bearskin rug holding a rose in his mouth. So,
oh no,
he's doing the photo shoot for that while he's in Vegas right now.
I don't want to see that.
It's the whitest ass you've ever seen.
We can only hope that his wife gets abducted by aliens while. Oh no, wait, I didn't say that, did I? I had another thought. Check out our sister podcast, Carolina Haints. They just wrapped up season 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
And are moving or working on the last season that's coming up. Also check out their book, Carolina Haints. You can find it on Amazon anywhere. In the preceding weeks, I will be appearing at RavenCon in Richmond, Virginia, April 21st, 22nd, 23rd. I will be at Automacon May 5th, 6th, and 7th, I think, that weekend, representing Brothers Keeper and Dead Men and Devils at the film festival down there, and probably doing some panels down there too. And then the first weekend in June, I will be at Con Carolinas. I just had to submit all my requests for panels and stuff there. May 5th, I think it's May 5th. I think it's Friday, May 5th. Dan and I and Jeff will be at, I think I can announce this. He's announced it. So we will all be at in Jamestown, North Carolina. Wreak Havoc Productions has been able to work with the state of North Carolina, and we're going to start hopefully putting up historical markers at places of significant ghost, cryptid, those kind of places around the state. So our first marker is at Lydia's, Lydia, the Jamestown traveling ghost. She'll get in a car with you if you don't watch, our hitchhiking ghost. So our first marker is going up at Lydia's Bridge in Jamestown. So big congrats to Dan who pulled that off. We got a grant for it and everything. So hopefully we'll do some more. And hopefully we're gonna work on a second book, which would be kind of cool. And you can also go support their Patreon page. Wreak Havoc Film Buffs has a Patreon page. Carolina Hates has a Patreon page. Every little bit helps keep the lights on.
And hopefully we won't almost get killed researching the next book.
We'll almost get killed, almost get stuck in a snowstorm, almost get attacked by a devil dog. What else happened that weekend? Lose money at Cherokee, and find a haunted staying place.
Yeah, haunted staying places. I've never laughed so hard in my life. Never.
Says the guy who told a story about peeing in a pork and beans can.
Gotta go where you gotta go.
Yeah. And we won't even get into Coon Man.
No.
Wait, what?
Coon Man. Raccoon Man. No.
Sang to the the tune of Spoon Man by Soundgarden.
Yeah. There, Dan has a script called Coon Man that has been on the drawing board for as long as I've known him. So, about 10 years or so. Anyway.
You can't pull it off without getting hate from different races on it.
Yeah, something like that. So, my other big announcement is I'm wearing a North Carolina Comedy Festival shirt. Channel 53, our sketch comedy troupe, has been accepted into the North Carolina Comedy Festival at the Idiot Box and other venues the first 2 weeks of September 3rd through something. I don't know. I have better dates next time. Hopefully the improv troupe will get in too. We've been in the past couple, so check that out at North Carolina Comedy Festival.com. I'm pretty sure. So anyway, thanks guys. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you don't like it, complain to Dan. He'll listen.
No, he won't. He won't. He's trained to not listen.
I gotta find the